What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Fantasy Football Breakdown Reunion episode. We are back. Well, Fee's in black. So one of us is back in black. I'm in stripes, Dunton's in yellow, but we're back.
It's really orange, creamsicle, but it's okay.
Creamsicle. It's creamsicle.
So sorry. Good to see everyone again. It's been a while. We haven't seen you guys since the end of the regular fantasy football season. I know that we had thoughts of Fanduel Fee starting his own spin-off show, but what happened is that gambling became legal in New York, and we haven't heard from Fee in about 3 months. So it's good to see.
In quite some time.
Ladies and gentlemen, Fanduel Fee is back. How are you, Fee?
I am great, and that's exactly what happened. Well, the first week it wasn't, and I just didn't get around to doing it. Just got so busy with work and everything else. And then gambling became legal, and all my attention turned to that, and has been on that for like the last month.
And Fanduel Fee has become Fanduel Fee for real.
2 months.
Caesar's Sportsbook Fee. We have the door open for many sponsorships with what Fee's gambling problem. And of course, joining us from North Carolina is the one and only Mr. Dunton. Dunton, how are you?
I'm doing great. I'm doing a lot better than the Carolina showing against Duke on Saturday night. Yes, it's college basketball season, everybody. So be prepared because
it's a weird one too.
It's so weird. Such a weird season.
Yeah, it's definitely a weird one. And of course, I'm your host, the Wayniac, Wayne Cavati, and like I said, we're really happy to be back here. If you remember, the last time we saw you, we were all frustrated with fantasy football. So, but part of our episode is our Super Bowl preview, but we're also going to take our look back at the fantasy football season. If you remember last year, we had an award show, episode by episode. We're not going to exactly do that this year. We're not coming back for a weekly episode just yet. We will be back for the fantasy football season, but we're still spacing out our time, making you guys anxious to hear and see our lovely faces. So this week, we're going to go look back. We're going to see everything that happened, and then we're going to get to our Super Bowl predictions. So, Fee, we'll start with you because I see your notes on our script here. Let's look back at the fantasy football season 2021. And Fee, what do you think of it?
It fucking sucked. That's what I wrote.
Yeah. It sure did.
I'm sure it didn't for the people that won their leagues. But it sucked. It was so hard and painful, literally and figuratively. So many injuries that you had to deal with. So many high round draft picks that didn't pan out. It was a rough year. You had to get really lucky, and I didn't.
Yeah, that's what it came down to. Dutton, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, and Fee said injuries, and it wasn't just injuries. It was the risk of a maybe, like the COVID list, and this guy is out on Thursday, but he might play on Sunday, but you don't know if he's going to play, and then you're playing that game. It was just a weird season, and the draft picks, I mean, so many first-round picks were not first-round pick worthy this year. So many fifth-round picks ended up being the reason that people won their fantasy league, which is just bizarre. And there used to be a don't have a quarterback and wide receiver on the same team because, what if it's a bust? But I think that might be the new method to go because it works if you have the right ones.
So. It sure did. Yeah.
And
I'll just echo what everyone said. I did make the semifinals in 2 of my leagues, so it wasn't all bad, but it was exactly what you guys said, right? I lost one league. I lost my semifinals by 1.6 because I started 2 guys that didn't wound up not playing it down, right? They wound up getting hurt in the first quarter and didn't get me any points. I lost by 1.6 points. The second game, I had to leave my house at 12:15 that day. Game started at 1. Damian Harris was still questionable. And the Bill Belichick game, I couldn't take the chance. I started Devontae Parker. Damian Harris had 3 touchdowns and 115 yards. Devontae, I don't remember the exact stat, but I believe, I could be wrong, it was the first game Devontae Parker played in 3 seasons that he didn't even get a target. So that's how my season in that league. Not a target to Devontae Parker, who's like average
crazy
reception.
Yeah.
not targets.
Yeah, he's a reception machine, right? And that just sums up the season right there, right? Like players not doing what they're supposed to be doing, and then I mean we're going to get to breakout players, and we're going to talk about wide receivers that aren't wide receivers, but yet somehow you have to draft them as a wide receiver.
Right.
So, like,
and one of the things, we talked about it in whenever they went to the 17-game season, we immediately thought it was going to kill fantasy football. And Fee, you mentioned the first round of just being, or Dunton, whoever did, saying the first round was not first round picks, and that was because it was running back heavy. And everything we said about the running back came to fruition. And people could say that we got lucky in our predictions when I said throughout the whole season, I said, we call this in June, we called it. And
right.
But everything we said was true.
Yeah, it's
Dutton, I mean, talk a little bit. I mean, what was so front? You had Christian McCaffrey, and it sucked. I had Dalvin Cook, and it sucked.
It wasn't a fun year for running backs who went high in the draft, right? If you had late round running backs, you were. I mean, don't get me wrong. I had Joe Mixon, and he might be one of the reasons I snuck into the playoffs. Right? He definitely outperformed what you were expecting from Joe Mixon. But I'm not a fan of the 17-game season. I know we have to get used to it. I don't like it. And if they're going to continue to do it, which of course they are, because money talks, but they got to fix the buys. Because can we talk about the buys?
Oh, so
like into what, week 13, right?
But not only the week 13, you had 1 week where like 2 teams were on a buy, and the next week 9 teams were on a buy.
And there should not be. I think it went all the way to week 14, right? There should not be a buy at all
past week 10,
where playoffs are on the line. Right? That's ridiculous.
And it should just be a division gets a bye. The AFC East gets a bye. Next week, the NFC East gets a bye.
And you can bring to the table, well, they're not concerned with fantasy. They're doing the best for the bye. Like you said, the buys made no sense. There was no rhyme or reason. So and B, there is no other sport like the NFL that is designed for gambling.
Exactly.
So you don't the players kneeling at the 1 yard line, not scoring the touchdown, that's not caring about fantasy. The way the NFL is set up should care about fantasy, should care about gambling. There should not be a bye 14 weeks into the season. You should find a way to get those buys into a window in a 6-week span and be done with them. That's it.
Yeah, for sure. Right.
And so don't tell me that, well, they don't care about gambling. No, that's not the case. Maurice Jones-Drew, not scoring that touchdown and saying F you fantasy footballs when that happened. That's one thing.
Right.
I get that.
Right.
Goodell needs to make the schedule. That's why the audience for the NFL is so wide, because anyone that knows nothing about football loves
gambling
over under. They love to make a fantasy team. They love to do this. And that's the whole appeal of the NFL, because right now it's a crappy product. Aside from the fact that you can bet every 5 seconds, there's a line changing. That's it.
Right.
That's the whole appeal.
Right.
And they blew it this year.
It's valid. And they need to fix the buys. Like that should be priority number one. Fix the buys. Hashtag fix the buys. I'm starting it now.
Fee, what do you want to add about the running back situation?
No, it was awful. I mean, we talked about it. The first 4 or 5 picks were all terrible. They were all basically busts. And they were almost all running backs most of the time. And, whether it was COVID, whether it was injury, whether it was just not playing well, everybody, I feel like, I don't know if it's true or not, but I feel like everybody missed time.
Yeah.
At one point or
Absolutely.
another.
Absolutely.
Running backs, running backs specifically, I'm talking about, missed time. It just depends on how much time, right? But it was definitely a struggle all year long. It was, and I know that we talked about it before the season started, but it's hard to get away from not taking a top tier running back in the first round. Now, that may change going into next year because of what we know now, even though we said what we knew beforehand, but we didn't really know it. And it was hard to get away from that, right?
Well, it's years and years of strategy that you're throwing out the window all of a sudden because they added a game.
Because listen, next year is going to be very different. Very different. And you might still have people that are hanging on to that, running back early mantra, if you will. and it might kind of bite them in the ass and help out the people that are willing to make that change.
Well, and the other thing too is real quick, Wayne, is
Go ahead.
when they, not just the injuries, but like when the injuries happened. Like if you're Aaron Jones owner, you're like, yeah, Aaron Jones, he's doing great, he's doing great. Boom, like week 9, right? There's nobody left on the waiver wire week 9,
Right.
and you just lost Aaron Jones.
Right.
And then it was like, well, it could be 2 weeks, it could be 6 weeks. Oh dear God. Like, yeah, it was just head scratching all year. Like it was crazy.
I mean, here's the thing. If you look at it, right, think back, I'm going back like 10 years, 5 years. There was a window where you had a D'Angelo Williams, Jonathan Stewart backfield. You
Absolutely.
could pick either or and still get your points, right? And you could give me the Broncos had, you're talking about the unicorn. Okay. The Broncos were the only 2-back successful system that both backs were fantasy relevant. We didn't do that. There were 7 running backs in football that had 1,000 yards, and 2 of them needed the extra week to get there. We're talking about a season where if it was a 16-game season of yesteryear, there were 5 running backs with 1,000 yards. That D'Angelo Williams, Jonathan Stewart season I referred to, I forget what it was, 2014-15.
Right.
D'Angelo Williams had 1,500 yards. Jonathan Stewart had about 950. He was like 20th in the NFL because of all the 1,000-yard rushers, and he had a 950. He would have been like 10th. He would have been like 8th, maybe,
Right.
It's crazy. Like they're not doing the same things. And I think that has to do with not only the load management that Dunton discussed, I remember in depth in the preseason, but analytics, right? Now you have these, it's just like the bullpen in baseball. Look at the Raiders. It's like, why are these guys touching the field? Well, he needs a break. He needs a break. He needs this. This guy is for 3rd down receptions when they're in dime on a Friday. But
Right.
And Richard when they're in nickel on a Thursday. So it all depends. And there's just too many mouths to feed now. It's
also running backs are not running the ball.
No.
It's a lot of like catch the ball out of the backfield, right? So they might have 850 rushing yards and 850 receiving yards, right? But it's just fantasy is going in a different direction. I think this year kind of illustrated that to people, like, okay, I have to be very strategic about my draft picks.
You just need to be able to adjust.
Mm-hmm.
You're gonna have to adjust to how things played out this year going forward. Basically trying to get guys that catch the ball out of the backfield, and you can't predict injuries, obviously.
Right. That's the thing.
You can try to pick up, more depth during the draft as opposed to waiting for the waiver wire type of thing. And maybe earlier than you might think. I mean, you might not take running backs in the first round, but you might be taking backups in like the 6th or 7th round.
Yeah.
You might need like 4 or 5 running backs by the time, the 8th round rolls around, but you're not going to take the beginning guys.
Well, you're going to end up with teams that are running back heavy, teams that are wide receiver heavy, but you're not going to have a team that's very balanced anymore. I shouldn't say that, but it's going to be hard to be a balanced team if you're drafting what you're asking to do there, Fee, which is I need to draft 3 top-tier running backs, right? Because at any point, one of them might not be playing. You're not going to be able to get 3 top-tier wide receivers because you've invested in your running backs. And I think the balanced teams are going away, and you're going to have running back heavy teams, wide receiver heavy teams, quarterback heavy teams. Because, I mean, I had Matthew Stafford and Joe Burrow as my quarterbacks. They're playing in the Super Bowl this year.
Right.
Like it's like that was like, oh, I'll pick Joe Burrow as my backup. Well, no, Joe Burrow lit it up towards the end of the season. Like, I just think it's going to get interesting to see the way people draft. And balanced teams will be harder to find.
They will. Even if you think you come out of the draft with balance,
you're going to be weak somewhere, right? You're going to have to be. You can't be premier at every position anymore and deep. You have to choose. Do I want to be premier or do I want to be deep, right?
Yeah.
So,
and something else that's going to change fantasy next year is there was a lot of coaching moves this and they're still going, right? We just got the head coaches in place. We're going to see new coordinators moving around. So the Bears, the Broncos, the Bills, the Raiders, the Vikings, the Jaguars, The Dolphins, the Texans, and the Saints all have new head coaches. Of
Not
course,
the Bills. Not the
The
Bills.
Giants.
sorry, the Giants. I said the Bills
Giants. He
because-
left the Bills to go
Right.
to the Giants. Right.
Yes. Of course, the Brian Flores thing is the big news. Everything he said is absolutely true, right there. But it was just a weird situation of the timing to me. Why did you trust Bill Belichick to go ahead with this lawsuit? That was the part I didn't understand, right? It's like everyone that ever was in the Giants organization that was associated with Bill Belichick has been fired a long time ago. Like, why wouldn't you first kind of take some steps and be like, hey, Giants, what happened here before you just went on the attack? That everything he's saying is true. There is a huge problem with the coaching in the NFL, right? But it was just weird timing to me. I don't know if that's wrong of me to say, but that's my opinion there.
I think you're right. I think Brian Flores bringing light to this is important.
Absolutely. Absolutely. 100%.
But I also think we're like looking at text messages from Bill Belichick where, I mean, did he pull a Larry David? Did he like intentionally text this?
It's so weird.
It's just weird to me. And Fiamano and I have had this conversation of, I think it just boils down to the pool just needs to get bigger. We need to stop retreading coaches all the time. And as we say, this Lovie Smith is being rehired for his third team. So he's in that mix too, right? But that doesn't mean that because we take Lovie Smith out of the pool, we have to put another white person in the pool, right? Like, I think that we just need to diversify the pool because the pool is very diverse when you get below the head coaching ranks. It is. You look at a lot of coordinators, defensive, offensive, special teams, like big names, right? I just think they need a shot. I don't know if the Rooney Rule, I think the Rooney Rule intention is great. I think the application is horrendous.
Exactly. And that's the whole thing. It is
Right.
it was a very smart and sound and fair idea that no one really, monitored, right?
And there's no enforcement. Like, how do you enforce?
Yes, that's the
right.
word.
How do you enforce that the interview for Brian Flores was as valid as the interview for Brian Dable? How do you enforce? You can't, right? And that's the unfortunate thing. So, yeah, it's a tricky situation. I applaud Brian Flores. I just hope there's more than we're strumming off of Bill Belichick texts and a possible hungover John Elway.
Yeah.
So let me be perfectly clear that I do believe that there's definitely a problem in the NFL as far
100%.
as
No one's questioning.
coaching is concerned, and with minorities, there's absolutely 100% a problem. Perfectly clear. However, I also believe that I don't think the Giants did anything wrong. And I think everything I've read so far and I've come across has been that the Giants, coaching search was on the up and up, and that they didn't have any kind of, sham interviews or anything like that. Flores was called in for a second interview. I think it was before that second interview that he thought that he was getting called in, for a sham. And to be perfectly honest, if Flores' whole thing about the Giants was that Bill Belichick texted him something, what does Bill Belichick know about the Giants organization?
That's
besides zero. Besides
it's a valid point.
Nothing. He doesn't know
right.
shit. He doesn't know jack shit. Okay. So the fact that some guy who's not in the Giants organization texts you and says, "Hey, guess what? Heard you got the job." Oh, whoops, not you. Oh,
wrong
sorry.
guy.
yeah, wrong. Sorry about that, bud. Yeah, no, I don't believe a word of that bullshit.
Yeah.
Now, if it took this to get changes to be made in the NFL, then that's fantastic. However, don't drag the Giants under the bus. And yes, I'm biased. Okay. However, they should not be getting dragged under the bus for something that they didn't do. As long as that's proven that they didn't do something.
And the interesting thing that you said there, Fee, that I want to kind of piggyback on is we're not hearing other teams come out as vocal as the Giants and I'm not saying it against the Giants. I'm actually saying it clearly. The Giants are saying, "Whoa, whoa, whoa! Pump the brakes on your accusations." But you don't hear that from the other teams accused in this. You know what I'm saying? They're very
Right.
quiet.
Right.
And I go
Like the
back to
Raiders,
the Raiders, or let's
the
go back to the
Dolphins.
original team. Why was he fired in the first place?
Yeah, well, right. I mean, that should be problem. That you should start there.
Like,
That's the real.
The guy
Hey,
was
so
hired
let's
when
take
the
that.
team
Let's
was
roll off that, okay? Because different person, same thing. The Texans hired David Culley to fail.
they 100%.
We sat here the day that the schedule came out and the day they announced that it was 17 games, and we joked that the Houston Texans were going to be the first 0-17 team in history. They went far, and I'm a Texans fan, and I was super impressed with the season, right? Davis Mills looked like an NFL quarterback. Who the hell was that guy?
He belonged there. He belonged there.
They won 4 games. They had no business, and 2 of the teams
Zero.
in the playoffs, right? They won 2 games against playoff teams. David Culley was there as a short-term stopgap, right? And I thought he would last more than a year. I couldn't believe he was fired, but that was their intention. Now, here's my point. Brian Flores was told he was a finalist with Josh McDown, Brian Flores, and Lovie Smith. Okay. Today, his legal team said they applaud the Texans for hiring a black head coach, but it wasn't Flores. And they admitted that he was told he was one of 3 finalists. He was one of 3 finalists. He wasn't the finalist, right?
And
but hold on, here's the thing. If you're going with Flores, because Flores is a kind of an upper-comer, he proved that in Miami, you're going for a long-term solution. With Lovey's out of the game in 2 years. The Texans are a mess, right? They need 2 years just to find their ass from their head right now.
He's a right to ship guy right now. That's what Lovie Smith is.
There because he was in the system. It's a hire that makes sense, because if you're going with Flores, he's going to have 2 crappy years, and you're going to tell him he has 3 years to turn around. You let Lovie Smith hang out to dry, then you bring in a guy like Flores and say, look, the damage is done. Now we're in the right direction. We finally have draft picks again. We haven't had draft picks,
Right.
And now you take the team, and we'll give you 3 years from here to do it. The problem
Lovie Smith is a right to ship guy. Right.
Yeah.
Lovie Smith is a right to ship guy.
Beard, in case you're watching the show, we have
he did it with the Bucks. What he's doing right now with the Texans, he was exactly at the Bucks, and he took them to the playoffs. Like, the problem is that I agree with you there. Like, Flores, and I'm glad his team backed off. I didn't know that, so thank you for telling me that, because 100%, Lovie Smith was in the system. Like, he's already there, and that's what you want. Promote from within. So here you have a candidate. He is a qualified candidate. He took a team to the Super Bowl. He took another team to the playoffs. He's got a history of doing well with teams. Like you said, he's not a long-term solution for a team that's rebuilding, but he's going to right the ship. He's going to guide the team in a good direction. He's going to get them to a place, and then a coach is going to come in and take that team further, right? Why not have Lovie Smith do that? And if you're Brian Flores, you don't want that job. I agree with you.
That's the whole thing. Why would he want the job? Just because,
right.
and maybe the Texans' final decision was made by the lawsuit, but Flores and his team has no reason to attack the Texans for that. No. That's a lot to take on, right? Sure. If you have 3 options and they're all this close and you just don't know which one to do, and you're like, well,
go with what you know.
Technically suing us because we're part of the NFL. We're going to go with the other guy.
But not only that, go with what you know. Go with what you know there.
It's almost like that his legal team is just grasping for straws.
Yes.
They attack the Giants with no real concrete evidence. They are attacking the Texans with no kind of real nowhere to go.
They need to stop going after the individual team.
They're just on the offensive, and they just keep attacking people with no real backing.
Right. Go
and it's just it's coming off as empty. It's coming off as empty, and that's not what we need.
That's what I'm saying. Like
for change, for real change.
They need to go after the
system that needs change, and I just feel like he went about it the wrong way. That's all.
Right. They need to go for higher. They can't go after this team and that team. They need to go after the system.
What the hell is down the Houston Texans going to do? Nobody. Half the NFL doesn't even know the Texans still have a team. That's how bad they are. Like, why are you going? You got to go after Goodell. Why are you going after the Giants and the Texans, who combined for 6 wins last year? Come on.
Right.
Morons.
Yeah.
But what do we think about the other coaches now that we went off on a tirade there?
So I can go make this real quick. Brian Daboll is the only good coach that was hired in this entire carousel of coaches. I'm sorry. I don't get excited about any one of these coaches other than Brian Daboll. And I will only be more excited when Brian Daboll says, you know what, Daniel Jones, you got 1 year, and then if not, you're gone. Because that's the only way the Giants are going to figure it out. The rest of them, I really think, are 2 to 3 year guys at the most. Because I don't think any of them are doing, maybe Josh McDaniels, but
I was just going to say, maybe Josh.
Maybe Josh McDaniels, but I think he's going to quit. He already did it once in Denver, so he's going to quit again.
Yeah. I'm surprised with how far along Belichick is. Like, it felt like McDaniels went back to become the next coach of the Patriots, and now he, he's so much closer with how long.
Right. Bill Belichick's got a lot less time left.
Right.
Yeah, that's true. But I feel like, I don't know, man. I feel like Belichick is going to coach for another 5-6 more years.
He's waiting for Brady to come out of retirement.
See if he can maybe right the ship and like figure, get the Patriots, win without Brady.
Yeah.
Is I think what he really wants to do is get at least one more win without Brady.
But I mean, and I agree with you that there's not a whole lot to be excited about on the coaching carousel, other than Daboll, who's going to be a nice fit. I think McDaniels has enough pieces that with his offense they could do well. That's a very tough division. I don't think they're going to be Super Bowl bound maybe in a year, but he definitely has stuff to work with. Kevin O'Connell has. It sounds like he's endorsing Kirk Cousins, and if you could keep that offense together and Cousins' mind right, I mean, it could be worse, right? That offense scores points, so maybe he's the right guy for the job. I don't know enough about that. But yeah, nothing that was like, oh my God, this is going to change everything. It was more shocking Sean Payton quit than them hiring Dennis Allen. That was more surprising to me.
And do you think Sean Payton quit because he thought he was going to get the Cowboys job?
I don't know.
No, I think he quit because he knew what he had in New Orleans, which was next to nothing.
Right. Wasn't he the one that pushed for that Taysom Hill weird deal too? That they have him locked up and nobody knows what position he's going to play.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's always good when you do that. Anyone else have any comments on the coaches before we move on to our fantasy 2021 awards?
I mean, is Doug Peterson going to be the savior of the Jacksonville Jaguars? Probably not.
I just read a stat that Trevor Lawrence had the most dropped passes in the NFL all year long.
He wasn't bad by any means of the amount.
That's what I'm saying. Like he's, believe it or not, I think he's a decent quarterback.
Didn't he go? I don't remember how many it was, but it was 5 or 6 games he went without throwing an interception.
No, he finished the season well, and he had a good win to end the season. I just don't know if Doug Peterson's the answer.
Right. No, I'm with you there.
Right. Sorry. I wasn't. Yep. Sorry.
I know
we were talking about.
I feel bad for Trevor Lawrence that Doug Peterson is his guy. Like, so.
Yeah. All right, so let's move on to our 2021 Fantasy Football Awards. We'll start with, let's start with MVP. Okay, so here's our list of candidates that we got. We got Jonathan Taylor, Thomas Brady. We didn't talk about Brady leaving. What about Brady leaving? Let's back up. I mean, Dunton, who's going to be the quarterback for your Bucks?
Russell Wilson, Aaron Rodgers.
She's not that coach.
Russell Wilson. How are you going to get Russell Wilson to the Bucks? What are you trading?
We're not. I don't know. We're gonna look.
You're gonna tear it down.
Tear it down. I told you
tear
this
it
the other
down
day.
and go with the old school orange uniforms and just go 1-16.
Can you bring Josh McCown back?
Yeah,
no, maybe. It is interesting that he said he might come back. He's not coming back.
No, he's not coming back.
And if he comes back, he's not coming back to the Bucks. I fully am convinced that Tom Brady retired because he knows that the Bucks next year are not going to be the Bucks from the last 2 years, and he doesn't want to rebuild.
Yeah, so. He doesn't have time to rebuild. He had it.
Why won't they? Who are they losing?
They have so many. Godwin's a free agent. Their defense is nothing but free agents on their defensive line, other than Vita Vea. I think he's the only one they have locked in.
Gronk is a free agent.
Gronk's out.
The only way Gronk comes back is if Brady comes back.
Right. I mean. And it's fine. Like, if they're going to rebuild, they're going to rebuild. But for his MVP for fantasy, yeah, he's up in the list. Let's keep going.
Yeah, Jonathan Taylor, Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, and Cooper Kupp. So, Fee, we'll start with you. Who would your choice be out of our 4 nominees right there?
Well, mine has got to be Cooper Kupp. He's the only guy I put in there. Yes, you could make a case for Jonathan Taylor as being the best running back this season, and Tom Brady being the best quarterback. But Cooper Kupp was by far and away the I think he was over or close to 100 points ahead of the next best receiver.
Yeah.
And I think he managed to get almost as many points. I think he had more points than the best running back, I think, than Jonathan Taylor. It was very close. But Cooper Kupp was by far and away the best fantasy player all year long for me.
Dutton?
I mean, it's hard to argue against Cooper Kupp as much as I want to. It's hard to. Like, value-wise, what was he? Late second, early third round pick?
Yeah,
right?
definitely the value. Absolutely.
Pick triple-double, right? I mean, he led in all categories, receptions, touchdowns, yards. Like, come on. Yeah, it's Cooper Kupp.
I agree. Taylor, look, I had Taylor in the one league and he won me games by himself, right? He's right there behind Kupp. I just think for the value and for I bet you every team that had Jonathan Taylor made it to the semifinals, at least bare minimum, you know what I mean, in their playoffs, the final 4 standing. But I just think Cooper Kupp, what he did this year was remarkable. 17 game season or not, the numbers he put up, he's got to be the fantasy MVP this year. So that's our vote. Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, fantasy football breakdown. MVP will be playing in the Super Bowl on Sunday. Cooper Kupp. Breakout, we could stick with, Cooper Kupp could be on that breakout list. We got a nice little list here. Some of them are rookies. We got Burrow, we got Chase, we got Deebo Samuel, Joe Mixon. Is we just gonna go with the Bengals? Najee Harris, Cordero Patterson, and I added Amon St. Brown. I mean, he was remarkable at the end of the season. I see this. There's a lot of good names in here, but I really see this. If we're talking about a true breakout, I think you do have to take the rookies off the list. And I think that this is a 1-horse race, and I think it's Deebo. The way that he was used, he was throwing touchdowns. He was one of the best rushers for 2 weeks in all of the NFL, and he was still a ridiculous wide receiver. I don't remember anyone transforming like that overnight to become a fantasy weapon, but I'll let you both talk about it.
I just remember a debate one night, us and some of our friends, of like, is he a wide receiver or is he a running back? What do you play him at? Because it's not fair if I have to play him at wide receiver because he runs the ball more. Right. I should be able to play him at running back, and I should be able to play other wide receivers, right? Yeah, he was phenomenal. Let's be honest. He's one of the reasons the 49ers made it to the NFC Championship game. I mean, literally carried them on his back some games, right? I
mean, that was a team we're talking about injuries earlier on. They had a different injury every week, right? Yeah. That's why he wound up playing running back. At one point, he had no running backs.
Right.
and yeah, when you say he put him on their back, he really did.
Yeah. So Deebo Samuel. He was big time.
Yeah, it's Deebo for me. He was really the only choice when I was thinking about this question that came to my mind. He was absolutely amazing. And like you said, he basically came out of nowhere. Like even the first couple of weeks of the season, he was like, okay, but then he just blew up. And then by the end of the season, he was just a beast, just an animal, like, between running the ball and catching the ball. And he was just all over the place. He got so many touches, so much volume. He was everywhere for the Niners. He was everywhere for fantasy owners. He was just raking in points. And he kind of did it coming out of nowhere, based on the beginning of the season.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I can remember like a Sunday night game, the guy had like 8 points on a possession without having a touchdown.
Right.
Because he had like 4 catches and 3 rushes. Like, it was crazy.
And, but now you have to, there's no guarantee for next year if they go to, what's his name? Trey Young. What's his name?
Trey Lance.
Trey Lance, because of his running style, right? Is that going to completely take away everything that Deebo worked for this year? But I don't think that changes this year, and I think he's the breakout guy of 2021. Now we get to one of my favorite awards, the 2021 Ass Hat Award. This was the guy that pissed us all off, and I think it's a universal all when I say that. Anyone that played fantasy and had any of these people. Now going into it, I had my mind set on someone, and then I saw who Fee listed. So I think what Fee listed is we could discuss it because I think it's the best answer. Josh Jacobs. I'm not so. He is an asshat, but we knew that after last year, and it wasn't his fault. It was coaching.
Right.
When Gruden left, he did put in some decent weeks.
He got better.
He did. So I'm a little hesitant on Jacobs. Antonio Brown, clearly on the list. Kenny Galladay. I didn't see Will Fuller on here. Will Fuller should be a candidate for asshat. The best move of the Texans season was trading Will Fuller because he still hasn't played a game for anybody. And then I added, Dalvin Cook, the number 2 pick in almost every league. Injury, he had off-field issues, and he just stunk until the last 3-4 weeks of the season. He stunk. I mean, he was outplayed by Madison every time that he got hurt. It was like the Vikings were almost better off. And that's not saying overall wise. I'm saying this year, Dalvin Cook for the spot he was taking was an asset, but Fee put it out there and it affected so much. And I think Urban Meyer should be the asshat of the year for 2021. That man killed Trevor Lawrence's rookie season and hopefully hasn't derailed his career. Killed James Robinson, who was a top 10 running back last year.
Throw him out the window.
Took Marvin Jones, who has been one of the most consistent wide receivers on one of the worst teams in football and still had fantasy value, and made him diddly squat. And then had Laviska Shenault, who was on everyone's radar as the breakout wide receiver of the year. And that guy had like 5 catches all year. So I think Urban Meyer is your ass hat of the year because
I think it's the
nobody
winner.
did more for killing fantasy football than Urban
He killed
Meyer.
so many players.
So many.
So when you throw this question out to us, it was literally the first thing that came to my mind was like how badly all the Jaguars players got ruined, and they didn't have to be. It didn't have to be that way.
No,
but we talked about how James Robinson was just getting so killed by Urban Meyer, just absolutely killed. James Robinson is a very, very good running back, and he played so poorly this year, and it's not his fault.
no.
And like, I just feel so bad for the guy because he could have been so good, and he just ruined him, just absolutely ruined him. And not to mention, he ruined everybody else that you just mentioned too.
Yeah.
Trevor Lawrence, Marvin Jones, Laviska Shenault. Like, they got weapons on that team, on that offense, and they could have done something, and he just absolutely killed it.
Yeah.
And I just, it was the first name that came to my mind was Urban Meyer. I didn't even think of a player. It was just him.
And why didn't we think of it either? The guy should have been fired after week 1.
Yeah. No question. There's no question. I thought the Texans were going to go 17-0 the way they looked against that team. And then it just turned out that Urban Meyer was the reason. I think Urban Meyer,
for sure.
We may call it the Urban Meyer asshat award moving forward. That's how much of an asshat he was.
So like, and you could throw in a whole bunch of player names in this category as well. But really, Kenny Galladay was my guy for asshat. I mean, he did nothing. Just absolute, like, so the Giants signed him in the offseason this year to be their number 1 receiver, and he's going to be great. Kenny Galladay, he was so good with the Lions and Stafford, and now the Giants got a number 1 receiver, and he was just brutally bad, just absolutely brutally bad. Like, he just did, and he was hurt half the time. Which, I mean, we all understood he was injury prone coming into the whole thing, but like he played less than half the games, and in the games that he did play, did zero. He almost shouldn't even have played at all the whole year long. Like, what was the point? He didn't catch a touchdown all year long, not one. Like, so I don't know.
Yeah.
Oh God.
Yeah, it was bad. But you got
maybe year two on the Dable will be better. Who knows?
Yeah, I wouldn't hold
Giants
my
got two first round draft picks, number 5 and number 7. Then maybe they'll get two offensive linemen, shore up the offense, get Daniel Jones some time. Maybe he'll throw some touchdowns at Kenny Galladay. Who knows?
Don't hold your breath, Fee. We want to see.
I was just gonna say it could just be wishful thinking on my part.
Yeah, very, very.
Fiumano just kind of had a mini stroke there, friends. We're sorry. He's back. We're okay now.
All right, ladies and gentlemen. So that wraps up the 21 fantasy football season. Thank the Lord. And hopefully we never have a fantasy season like that again if the fantasy gods are watching. Let's move on to Super Bowl predictions. We got a little bit of work to do here. We're going to talk about obviously the big game. We're going to talk about some players, and we're going to talk about some props. So let's start. Remember, let's do a little recap. This show is 2 years old. I am the champion because the Buccaneers fan did not pick the Buccaneers to win last year, nor did Fiumano, but I did. I rode the Buccaneers the whole season.
You did. You had more faith in them than I did.
But so this year, obviously, we have the Rams and the Bengals. The Rams are currently 4.5-point favorites. So first, never mind the spread. Let's not worry about the spread. What do we think is going to happen in the game? Dunton, we'll start with you. Dunton.
Bengals at the wire. I mean, it has to come down to a last-second field goal. These playoffs dictated it, right? Bengals at the wire. I think I'm speaking with my heart more than my head, but Bengals at the wire.
Feet.
It's the Rams. The Rams are going to win the Super Bowl. It will be a very close game, and we'll talk about that when we get into the betting portion of this. But I think the Rams will win the Super Bowl, and they'll be the champions. I just think that they have the better team. The only thing that could possibly get in the way is that even though this is the Rams from LA in their home stadium in LA, they don't have any fans. Yeah. And it's going to be all Bengal fans in that stadium, and it's going to be basically an away game for the Rams, and it's going to make it a lot more difficult for them. But I do think they just have the better team, and the Bengals are raw and they're young and they'll be back. But I just think it's the Rams' time right now.
I'm just not going against Burrow. He's too. He's Gardner Minshew meets Tom Brady, right? He's got the actual playoff swagger and talent, but he could be Gardner Minshew with all the fun outfits and
flair.
Doesn't care.
I don't think it's a blowout. I think it's like a touchdown, maybe like 8 points or something weird like that. But I think it's a significant amount of points. So I do think the Bengals win. I'm not going against Burrow. So let's talk a little bit about why we picked our picks. Dunton, what makes you think the Bengals could win?
Okay, so really it's more about the Rams is why I think the Bengals can win. The Rams played a Cardinals team that looked like a JV high school football team where Kyler Murray was just literally giving them the ball at the goal line.
Talk about a coaching problem. Cliff Kingsbury still has a job. That team, Brian Flores took a team and went 8-1 down the stretch, and Kingsbury went 1-7, and nothing happened to him.
I mean, so going back to the Rams, they beat a Cardinals team that just gave them the ball 3 times at the 1-yard line. At one point, Kyler Murray literally just flipped it over his head to them, right? We saw that happen on national TV. Peyton and Eli didn't even know how to describe it.
Then he threw a pick 6 in the All-Pro game. The guy couldn't get out of his own way.
Then they beat a Bucs team that was depleted. The Bucs really didn't. I mean, the Bucs defense lost the game. The Rams didn't stop the Bucs offense in the second half, right? They are one interception that was in his hands, hit him in the numbers away from losing to the 49ers, right?
Yeah.
It's a completely different game. So, all that being said, I'm waiting for Matthew Stafford to Matthew Stafford. It's coming. I just feel like
6 waiting. The Bengals defense is hot. Yes, there's a weird offensive line matchup between the Bengals offensive line and the Rams defensive line.
Yes.
Where Joe Burrow could get sacked for a record 20 times in the Super Bowl. We don't know. But that being said, he still can win. So I just think they find a way, and I just think they're going to find a way.
Yeah, well, since Fee left,
he's had enough.
I think what you said is part of it. Like, look, everyone says the Rams have this great defense, right? But just look at the numbers. They allowed over 4,800 yards through the air. That was the 5th worst in the NFL. Okay. They allowed 8.1 yards per pass play. That was the 3rd worst in the NFL. And the only team that allowed more passing touchdowns was the Buccaneers. And the Buccaneers pass defense was atrocious for about the first 13 weeks of the season before it became bad, right? It was
Right, for sure.
bad. And then they got a little bit healthy and it became just bad. So the Rams allowed 41 touchdowns to the air. I get it. That defensive front is going to give Burrow trouble. That offensive line on the Bengals has a lot to prove. But in that game that he got sacked 9 times by the Titans, he still threw for 350 yards, right?
Right.
You got Jamar Chase, you got T. Higgins, you got Fanduel Fee's Fool's Gold, and however you say the tight end's name.
If he plays, he's a question mark.
It looks like
but-
he's playing though, right? Wasn't that crazy?
Yeah.
Like they said he was out for the year, and now all of a sudden he hasn't practiced, but he's in practice going through.
Right, and he's like working on the bike and stuff.
Yeah. So he might play, but they have weapons. It's like you said, Mixon.
Joe Mixon is going to be huge. I really think Joe Mixon screen pass is going to be a huge play that we're going to hear a lot called.
But it's 100%. It comes down to that offensive line, defensive line matchup. That's 100%. Cooper Kupp's going to get his. Jamar Chase is going to get his. Joe Mixon will probably get his. But, I just think that it's the Burrow show. And it's like you said, just too much weird stuff has happened this year. Yes, LA is home. Yes, LA is in its own stadium. But I don't know. It just doesn't feel right. I think the Bengals expose the Rams defense. Fee, you are the lone wolf on the Rams. So tell us why.
Okay. You just rattled off a whole shitload of stats
I did.
that aren't going to mean squat in the Super Bowl. Okay, and here's why. Yes, the Rams have had trouble through the air all year long. When they've been playing lots of pass heavy offenses in the NFC. Burrow's problem, and yes, he got sacked 9 times by the Titans, but the Titans secondary is not very good.
No.
The Rams secondary is decent, even though they gave up all those stats that you just mentioned. But the problem is going to be they didn't have Von Miller until 4 or 5 weeks ago.
Right.
And that defensive line is just going to be incredibly hard to stop. The Bengals offensive line is terrible. They've played well recently, especially against the Chiefs, although the Chiefs, again, don't have a good defensive line. So now they're playing real guys. And I just don't think that that Burrow is going to have enough time to pick them apart. And yes, he can check down. Yes, he can throw the screen pass. I just don't think it's going to be enough against the Rams.
I mean, it's possible, but in the same sense, you think the game's going to be close, right?
I do. And I absolutely think the game is going to be close. And I mean, I'll say it right now that if you're betting the game, you should absolutely take the Bengals plus the 4.5. I am. I just think that that's the smart play for sure. It's going to be a close game. Again, I just think the Rams are going to be the ones to pull it out. Defense wins championships. People say it all the time, and all those stats that you threw out there, it doesn't really mean much when you get to that final game.
Absolutely, I agree that. I agree.
Yeah, what happens is you get guys that play their butts off, and you have some incredible talent on that Rams defensive line, the entire defense. And then you have guys like Odell Beckham that have something to prove. There's just a lot that the Rams have to play for. I don't know. Sean McVay is a weird cat, but he can go in so many directions with this. Oh, we could play with a chip on our shoulder. We're at our home stadium and we're not going to have the home field advantage. And everyone's talking about the Bengals and how they beat the Chiefs and they're this up and coming team. But what about us? What about the Rams? What about all of you guys? What about the best defensive player in the NFL and Aaron Donald? What about Von Miller, who's this might be his last chance? What about Odell Beckham Jr., who everybody hates? You play all that up into this last game. I don't know. I'm a big believer in the defense wins championships. And when it gets to that final game of the year, you want the team that has the better defense.
That's fair.
Yeah, I mean, and it could be a Seattle Broncos Super Bowl, right? Where the Seattle defense just completely manhandled the offensive line of the Denver Broncos, and Peyton Manning never had a chance, right? I mean, that game was over from the first snap that went 20 yards over Peyton's head, right?
Yeah.
And
But nobody saw that coming, right?
No, nobody saw that coming. So it's
And
interesting.
Von Miller was there.
He was. And then Von Miller was the MVP the next year when they totally dominated Cam Newton and the Panthers.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so now you're talking about a guy who's got experience being in the big game and being on both sides of that ball. He can tell the younger guys, hey, I know what it's like to be on this side. I also know what it's like to be on this side.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. So you think, Dutton, you think the Bengals cover, obviously. Fee, why are you taking Bengals 4.5 Rams money line and doing a little parlay action?
I would if I could, but in New York, for whatever reason, I think that
he can't do that parlay, Wayne. He can tell us how many rebounds we're looking for, but not that parlay.
No, it's very weird. New York has some very strict rules about parlays and other sorts of shit where like you can't put two bets together. It's very weird. I don't know what the laws and rules are, but there's definitely some shit where you're just not allowed to do. I've tried it.
We're not allowed to bet at all. So.
I've tried to bet like different types of parlays, and it says you can't parlay these two bets together. And like one of them is like betting both sides of the game.
Interesting.
For whatever reason, like, if you were to want to do that money line and plus, you can't parlay that. You'd have to just place two separate bets.
Okay.
Which is crazy. It's kind of annoying because I don't know what the rule in law is. So like I don't know what bet you can and what bet you can't.
Right.
So,
but we do.
If I could, I would. I would absolutely play the Rams money line and the Bengals plus.
So we do have a clean sweep and agreeing that the Bengals cover the 4.5.
Yes.
Yes.
All right. So over under right now is currently 48.5. Where do you see that? Dutton.
For some reason, I want to say under this year because I feel like everyone's expecting this to be this back and forth shootout, and I don't think that happens till the end of the game. And it ends like, I don't know, 24-20 or something. So I'm going to go under.
Fee?
Yeah, this is a tough one because, Vegas knows what they're doing. They put that line like right at the spot where it's just like, well, I don't know. Which way do you go with this? It's really hard. It's a tough number. I'd want to say under, but every time I say under, it never happens. It happened like in the first like 3 weeks that I was betting with Puffy, and like I bet the under on like 4 different things, and then none of them ever happened. It always went over. 48's just a tough number. Like, like Dutton said, you could all of a sudden, that Chiefs Bengals game, they scored 26 points in the last 4 minutes of the game.
What about the Chiefs Bills game?
Yeah.
Yeah, the under is hard. Okay. The under is hard. It's probably the smart bet, but I'm staying away from the over under in this game, but if I were to actually put money on it, I'd have to bet the over. Just for entertainment purposes.
I'm going over. I think one of the teams, even if I'm wrong, let's say I'm wrong about the Bengals winning, I think one of these teams scored 35 points in that ballpark. So if it's the Rams, or if it's the Bengals, the way I look at it is someone's getting to 35 points. Even if it's a blowout in the worst case scenario, both of these offenses are so good, they're going to get 21 points in garbage time. Boom, you're over.
You don't even need 35. All you need is a 28-24 game, and you got your 52 right there.
28-21 is 49.
27-24,
Yeah. But I definitely goes
what'd
over.
you say?
28-21.
28-21 will get you there.
Yeah.
But yeah, 27-24, 28.
Still going under. I'm going 24-20, 44.
31 something, 31-28.
Yeah. So, all right, and then let's close it out and have a little bit of fun, and let's talk a little bit about prop bets. Feed dug us up some good ones. So let's see. Outcome of the first coaches challenge is play stands. is minus 103. What do we think the first challenge is? Is it going to stand or is it going to get overturned? I think it stands.
Right. Yeah. So this one is the play. The bet is the play stands. McVay is like, oh, for his life.
Yeah, I'm going for overturn because he's terrible at it. So he's going to challenge
Really?
a call and it's
Okay.
going to
No,
get
no.
overturned.
No, that's not overturned. That stands.
No, it could get overturned. No, he could challenge it. Yeah, I'm still going
what I'm
overturn.
trying to say-
I know. I'm going overturned.
Okay, fine. What I'm trying to say is that Sean McVay is so terrible that every
He's awful.
every challenge he makes, the play stands.
Right.
Nothing gets overturned.
I'm going overturned. The other guy's going to challenge it. The Bengals.
Also, just to
That might be, but remember, it's just the first one.
I know.
yeah, to reinforce all of us taking 4.5 Bengals 4.5. You brought up the McVay stat. It reminded me the Bengals have covered the last 6 games against winning teams. So when they play winning teams, you take the Bengals. They're going to cover the spread, and I think we're good there. Anyway, back to these props. The time of that the final play of the game will be completed, 10:14, 59 Eastern time or earlier. You think earlier? I feel like it always goes to 11. Am I wrong?
Yeah, wait. I wrote down something about this. Wait a minute. Let me.
All right. What time's the game start? 6:30.
That's like 6:27. It's always
Right.
it's the time that 6:30.
But then halftime is longer.
Right. Got to get
Here
those
you go.
commercials in there.
The
All right.
commercials are longer.
Yes, and all of that is true.
I feel
However,
like last year's game was over by like 9:30. I felt like it was so fast last year.
Maybe.
it was. Here's the stat. Dating back to 2005, there's only been 3 Super Bowls that have gone over the time.
And one of them had to be the stupid 49ers Ravens that had like a 45-minute
Oh, yeah,
blackout.
the blackout.
Right. So it's that one that had the blackout. It's the Eagles Pats in Super Bowl 52, which was the highest scoring game in NFL history at 41.
Right, so there's a lot of timeouts, right?
And Super Bowl 51, in which the Pats and the Falcons went to overtime.
Right.
Okay, so those are the only 3 games.
Huh, that's interesting. I always feel
So
like
you had an overtime game, a blackout game, and the highest scoring game in history.
okay.
So the smart bet is to play the under on this at 10-14-49.
Yeah, but have we watched these games?
If the game starts at 6:30, you're essentially putting the over-under at 3 hours and 45 minutes of game time. Super Bowl 52, the highest scoring game in history, was 346. Super Bowl 51 in overtime was only 347.
Huh.
And the blackout was
feels like
414.
I feel like this game is going to go longer, and here's why. This game is going to come down to the end. They're going to have all their timeouts at the end. We're going to call a bunch of timeouts. It's going to be 10-13. It's going to be like 25 seconds left, and there's going to be multiple timeouts called. It's going to end at like 10-17.
No, I think you're going to need more than just timeouts being called in order to get past that.
Another blackout.
Yeah, Snoop Dogg is going to light something on fire by accident. It's going to delay the second half. Right, they're going to delay the second half.
Okay, both teams make a 35-yard plus.
100%.
Easy.
Lock it.
Yes.
Lock it.
Fee, let's talk about the one you were telling me about before the show on the touchback.
Oh God. Okay. So the bet is the opening kickoff resulting in a touchback. And the bet should be no, and which is currently at plus 110, because I guess 90% of the time it's a touchback on kickoffs. However, you want to bet the no on this. And the reason is, and this is a direct quote from Pat McAfee. Okay. Kicker extraordinaire. Everybody loves Pat McAfee.
Yeah.
Here's his direct quote. There isn't normally a touchback on the opening kickoff of the Super Bowl because the ball is a brand new ball and it's basically just plastic. Most of the balls you kick have been rubbed down for 30 minutes by your equipment manager and the other team's equipment manager in the presence of an NFL official, and it's beat up a little bit. The Super Bowl kickoff ball, the ball that goes immediately to the Hall of Fame right after the kick.
Brand new.
So it's not beat to hell and back for 30 minutes by an equipment manager. It's very difficult to kick a brand new ball for a touchback.
That's
And
fun little insight, right?
by the
This
way,
is a
this
deep
is not part of the
dive.
by the way, this is not part of the quote. This has hit in 18 of the last 20 Super Bowls.
So no
20
hits,
Super Bowls. 18
no
of
has
20.
hit 18 times.
The first kickoff of that last 18 of the last 20 Super Bowls has not been a touchdown. The first
Yeah, which
kickoff.
means that
Seems
this
like
year
an
it's gonna
easy
be
bet, right?
right. Which means that this year it's gonna be because everyone's talking about it. So whoever the kicker is gonna kick the shit
the
out of that
McAfee
ball.
screw everyone.
Maybe.
Because he talked about it.
Yeah, maybe.
Fee called these digging deep. Jamar Chase, most receiving yards in the Super Bowl out of any receivers, plus 450. That seems like a good bet, right?
What's the total yards? What's the number?
No, it's not.
No,
Just that
no, it's
Jamar
not. It's
Chase
just what
has
the most
yards,
most
out of
receiving.
anybody.
Oh, he of this Super Bowl, he has the most.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh yeah, for sure. Lock it in.
So
Yeah, even with
and the
Super
reason
Cup, it's. I mean, it's not a get. Yes.
so it's not a lock. It's not a lock, but the fact that you're getting plus 450,
Right.
That's why I'm doing it.
He would be the second best, right? And if something happens where Cooper Cup, not I want to say he gets injured or something, but say say he has 110, 120 yards, maybe Jamar Chase goes absolutely ballistic and has 140 or 150 or 160, and just that off chance of him beating out Cooper Cup for the most yards in the game at plus 450, those are some long odds. Those are, you to be getting to nail something like that.
Total combined rushing yards over mark is 210 and a half.
Yeah. So this one, if you believe in high scoring games or not being able to run the ball and, having to check it down and throw screen passes and that sort of stuff, you absolutely want the under in this game. Cam Akers, as good as he's been, has not rushed for more than 70 yards in a game in the playoffs. While Joe Mixon he's done most of his damage through the air. And especially against this Rams defensive line, you're probably more inclined to say he's going to catch the ball more often than run. Now the problem with this one is not that it's a problem, but that over/under number at 210 and a half is you're laying some serious juice at minus 174 on it.
Yeah.
So they're betting that yes, it should go under, and you're going to pay for it. And you might get screwed on it if it goes over. But I think the smart play is to bet the under on that number.
I agree. 100% agree.
I don't think this
even
is
though
a
you're
running
laying,
game.
Yeah.
Even though you're laying some serious juice,
I don't see either running back cracking 100 yards.
Yeah.
So.
Gunsslinging.
Yes.
All right, ready? We're going to close out the show right here.
Rapid fire
for fun. Coin toss, heads or tails, Dunton?
Tails.
Fee?
Heads.
I'm going heads. Who scores first, Bengals or Rams? Dunton?
Rams.
Fee?
Rams.
I'll go Bengals. Who calls the first time out, Bengals or Rams? Dunton?
Bengals.
Fee?
Rams.
I'll go Rams. I'm going to go Rams. What color is the Gatorade dumped on the winner? Dutton?
Orange.
Orange.
I'm going orange because it's going to be the Bengals. Which quarter will be the highest scoring quarter combined, Rams and Bengals in this one? Dutton?
Fourth.
This one's easy too, yeah.
Fourth and the lowest?
First.
I'm going to go second to be a little
contrarian there.
7-3 in the first, a scoreless second, and then fireworks in the second half. Everyone who took the over is going to be crapping themselves at halftime, and then they're going to be like, woohoo!
And everyone who took the under is going to be so pissed at the end of the game.
Well, hey, everybody. It was great seeing you again. We hope you enjoy your Super Bowl. We hope you take some of our advice, and it does you well. By the way, shout out to Teddy Ballgame, who texted us and said that Fanduel Fee helped him win his Fanduel League. Awesome. And shout out to everyone else that checked in on us and told us they couldn't wait for our reunion show. We'll be back kind of closer to when camps are opening to talk a little bit about news. So we'll see you in 5 or 6 weeks, just like we did this one. And then don't forget, we will be back next season full time. We're just going to ease our way into it. We hope you enjoyed this episode. We're so glad that you were back, and we'll see you soon. Have fun at the Super Bowl.
Good luck in this betting.
Go Bengals.